when was the last time you could say that you had time off?
Wala. Simula nung nakulong ako, paglabas, talagang we hit the ground running. That was 2011. Late 2010 ako nakalabas. 2011, talagang dire-diretso na. Hanggang 2022. So, even if my term ended in 2019, we still had the Magdalo party list hanggang 2022. So, we were in the thick of the action, so to speak. So, yun. Kaya, ito na. Ano lang, July of 2022, medyo lumuwag na
No, hindi. Kaya ako tinatanggol. Kasi nga parang, precisely, parang doon naman talaga nag-uumpisa yung chapter nyo in the public eye, di ba? Nung awkward, nakulong kayo, di ba? And sabi nyo nga, pagkatapos nun, dire-diretso, parang walang tigil.
Yeah.
Did it feel weird?
Actually, it was a relief, big relief. Parang a huge load of our shoulders, no? Parang nakahinga ka, and not only personally and professionally, pero even in the context ng yung sa bansa, nung nag-shift si President Marcos ng mga policies, no? Ininto niya yung EJ case, nag-shift siya from China to Western ulit, tapos wala ng political persecution. So, magaan. Even yung press freedom, ramdam ulit ngayon, no? You can criticize the administration without fear of retribution. So, magaan all around. Yeah.
Now, I'll get to all of those later. I'm still more curious about how you shift modes, or do you allow yourself to shift modes? Never mind the certificate that you get from the Kennedy School of Government, from Harvard.
Yeah.
But that time that you're there, how do you find yourself spending it?
The last course na kinuha ko naman was actually my third one, no? But every time I'm there, parang na decompress, no? Whenever I spend time, kahit vacation with my family, mag-aaral ako, or nade-decompress ako. Pero pagdating kong balik sa Pilipinas, ulit, back in action ulit.
Kasi ang impression ko sa inyo, and I think other people might have that same impression, whether they agree with you or not. Diba? And there are many people who agree with you, there are many people who disagree with you, disagree with your tactics.
Yeah.
But I think one common impression that people have of you is hindi mo kayang bumitaw even for a second sa bayan or the things that you say you care about. The Duterte administration is one, of course, recent example. Pero yun, siguro doon pumupunta rin yung tanong ko parang, do you actually
shut off, parang gano'n?
Can you actually shut off? Do you feel like, hindi, okay lang. Actually, pag minsan pwede man bitawan yung bansa, hindi naman babagsak ang Pilipinas.
Actually, nung 2016, when I ran for Vice President, ang idea nun, personally, was, kumbaga, if things won't go my way, then mag-shift na ako sa private. Dahan-dahan na, ako, so slow down na. Kasi yung from Oakwood hanggang 2016, talagang, it was a very stressful time, So, tinitignan ko, I was looking forward to that, na magta-transition na ako. Then, yun na nga, biglang naman nagpatayan every day, I would recall that. Pagkaupo pa lang, parang naku, ano naman ito, di ba? And, yun. So, hindi mo pwedeng bitawan ulit yung bansa because ando dun ulit di ba? So, grabe yung, talagang political battles nun. And, you cannot pause kasi nga, initially, dalawa kami ni Senator Laila. Then, eventually, she was put away. Ngayon, ando doon na lang ako, alone, Of course, I have my colleagues in the opposition, but hindi sila as direct and as open as I am. At meron sila ibang mga tinututukan. So, ganun yon hanggang 2022. Then, kaya nga after nun, yun, parang, okay, are we done sa ating mission, no? Kaso, biglang, ito na naman, may mga nangyayari na naman. And the risk of going back dun sa nightmare noong 2016 to 2022, kumaga, keeps me up at night, na tipong, we can't allow our country to relapse again.
And sige, like I said, I'll get to all of that later, but i-fast forward lang natin yung pagkakilala sa inyo. From the Oakwood Mutiny to everything that happened, all the administrations, Duterte administration, in the Oakwood Mutiny, which was in 2003.
Yes.
You were obviously a very angry young man. But over the course of 20 years, what does that make you? What are you now?
Siguro, I would like to believe that the fire is still there, pero mas subdued na siya ng konti, mas mature, mas malawak na yung pananaw kasi along the way I've learned how things work in the political world, in the world in general. Kaya mas mas equipped na rin ako to handle certain obstacles. So parang ganun siguro.
Does it make you more a pessimist, or does it make you more an optimist? What you went through, what you've seen over 2 decades?
I remain an optimist, but at the same time, I am pragmatist in terms of certain expectations. Diba? I still believe that we can turn things around, and sinasabi ko nga dun sa mga kasama ko at mga nakakausap ko na makikita nyo rin within your lifetime yung hinahangad nating pagbabago. And I'm confident about it. I don't know kung saan nanggagaling yon, pero nararamdaman ko na doon.
Yeah, but that's certainly not the same Trillanes that was speaking in 2003.
So more wizened, and nakita ko na hindi pwedeng lahat parang kung the way I envision it, parang ganun dapat ang mangyayari.
In other words, if you could talk to your 2003 self, you will tell the young Sonny Trillanes, bata, hindi mo pa naiintindihan yung mundo at hindi ito ang paraan.
And hindi naman ganon, kasi I would like to believe yung nangyari na yon, mga negative experiences, positive experiences, yung totality na yon brought me to where I am today. Lahat ng mga, mas marami kang matututunan pagka sa mga failures mo, di ba? Sa mga negative experiences. Siguro kung all my life, puro successes ang experience ko, I would be so arrogant and kumbaga parang I would feel invincible, and all-knowing. Pero hindi ganun eh. So, I was humbled also
Sige.
a lot of times.
Can I take you back to 2003?
Yes.
Meron ako talagang gustong tanungin.
Yeah.
What were you thinking? Ay, nung pinaplano nyo yun, if you could share sa yung mga plano nyo, getting to that, what exactly were you planning? Or ganito, not just planning, what were you imagining? What was the best case scenario? What was the best ideal outcome that you told yourself na pwede to, mangyayari to?
Okay, kasi yung observer, yung outsider, ang nakita lang nila yung nakita sa media. And yung pinakita ng propaganda machinery after. Pero hindi naman ganun yun eh. In fact, kami mga magkakaklase, yung mga underclass, we just wanted to air out our grievances. And we did exactly that.
Yes, but that's what happened. What I want to know is, what were you prepared for in the worst case? Because I think we all know the worst case. The worst case would have been patay kayong lahat. Di ba? And many other people could have died with you. Di ba? But what was the best case scenario that you were imagining?
Well, ganito nga, part ng naivete yung kala namin, pag sinabi kami, yung mga tao, pakikinggan nila, at mag-action gagalaw sila accordingly. No?
Mga tao meaning higher-ups? Taong bayan.
Kasi, ganito, marami kaming grievances about corruption, yung, kumbaga, dilapidated equipment ng AFP. Tapos, yun nga, yung selling of arms and ammunition to the enemies of the state. Tapos, yung state-sponsored terrorism, na yung mga kasama namin inutusan to kill civilians, yung maghahagis ng granada sa mosque, to trigger something. Tapos, along with that, merong oplan talaga yung mga nagpuputukan noon sa Mindanao. It was a scenario, it was a state-sponsored scenario para maka-access tayo ng terror funds, anti-terror funds from the international community. Parang hindi nag-reconcile yun dun sa training namin, at saka yung how we were brought up to. Dapat alam mo kung anong tama at mali. So, we went up the chain of command to raise the alarm about it. To the point na nakausap ko mismo si GMA, through yung AD camp niya na classmate ko. Nakausap ko siya mismo and I brought that thing up. Ngayon, nung ang sagot niya, hindi satisfactory na wala siyang kinalaman doon. So, we had two choices. To turn a blind eye or do what we did. So, pagka hinayaan namin yun and kung ano man yung nangyari after, bibit-bitim ng konsensya mo yun until the end. So, ginawa namin, present namin sa taong bayan. Of course, may mga political elements nun who wanted to use yung aming grievances for their own political ends. But in the end, nanaig yun sa amin. Nilabas namin. Di ba? Ang worst case scenario nun is talaga kukulong kami. Everybody was prepared to die fighting for that cause. Tapos, everybody was prepared to, term doon, maghimas ng rehas ng malamig na bakal. But, it didn't distract us from what we needed to do, which was to tell the people. Ang problema namin doon, ang sa public communications pala, yung kailangan digestible parts lang yung ang ibibigay mo. Kasi pagka nilabas mo yung it's too much information, it will not be digested. At hindi lahat ng tao nanunood in real time. Kung ganun kami ka-naive, But Yun. We had no way of knowing.
But you
Yeah.
were, I mean, all of that is true and fair.
Yeah.
But nung nangyari yun, sabi niyo nga, you were expecting that here are young officers crying foul and raising the alarm over unconstitutional orders that will kill civilians,
Yes.
that will sow unrest in Mindanao, just so we can get anti-terror funds
Yeah.
from abroad. Talagang kahindik-hindik. Diba? And you were thinking na if people hear this, magagalit sila at magpi-people power. Diba?
Yun ang assumption.
Yeah, that's the assumption.
Yeah.
Didn't happen. But you said that's part of the naivety.
Yeah.
My question is, I'm not actually a cynic here. Why is that naive? I mean, why, when you look back now,
Yeah.
actually I'm thinking, that should not have been a naive proposition.
Yeah.
Especially if you consider that we've done people power before. So why, looking back now, why did that ultimately, even to your own assessment, become something that you would consider naive?
Because yung channels of communication, hindi siya perfect.
Okay. So it's about your communication strategies. It's not
Hindi lang.
about, you don't think it wasn't naive because actually the people didn't have the appetite for another people power.
Hindi yon. Kundi, as I mentioned, una-una yung communication skills, may problema na, may loss in translation. I was communicating in English. Sinasabihan pa nga ako ng report, sir, Tagalogin nyo para maintindihan. Kaso hindi kami, may military English eh. Alam niyo yan, sa PMA, gano'n. It's not perfect English, but that's how we communicate. We communicate as soldiers, parang robot. And here I was, being trusted into that role. Hindi ko alam how to communicate with the man on the street. So that's one. So may loss in translation. Pangalawa, yung channels of communication. Hindi naman lahat ito, pag nagsasalita ka, i-cover ka live, real time, tas everybody will listen to you. No.
Are you comfortable now basically seeing yourself as a politician, no longer as a military man?
Yes, definitely. No? Kasi sa military as a military man, limited yung parameters mo. Ito lang yung kailangan mo makita, ito lang yung mga tools mo, no, to accomplish the mission. As a politician, mas broad ka, and you deal with more sectors of society. Ganun.
Anong hindi naintindihan ni Lieutenant Trillanes na naintindihan ni politician Trillanes?
Well, as far as yung grievances namin doon, parehas pa rin yun. Kung ano yung mali nun, yung state-sponsored tourism, corruption, etc., ganun pa rin yun. No? Pero yung paraan to deal with that, ngayon kasi as a politician, pwede na ako, I can fire away at Duterte na kasi yun ang part ng tools na isang politician which a lieutenant cannot do. Diba? Limited siya, kaya para siya nasasakal na gano'n. Yun.
I have to say, I know a lot of people who are not enamored by you, are not fans,
Yeah.
are not pro-Duterte, diba? But during the time of Duterte, they said, and I think marami can relate to this. A lot of people said to each other, okay na rin palang may Trillanes. Kailangan na rin pala natin ng ganito. Before that, there were people who were like, Trillanes, galit na tao pala. Wala nang nakitang tama. Diba? Parang kutya lang ng kutya. Banat lang ng banat. Diba? Loose cannon.
Yeah.
And sometimes some people would accuse you of actually damaging the cause of whichever side you were on. Di ba? But during the time of Duterte, they did say na, may silbi pala yung ganun. Do you understand what they're saying?
Yes. Ako, I totally understand. And sabi ko nga, yung nakikita nila through the years, as you mentioned, started off as an angry young man. Nag-spill over yan as a young politician. Remember, I was elected the youngest ever, dito sa 1987 Constitution at 35, senador ako. So, parang nag-spill over yon, di ba? Parang, alam mo na, pag bata medyo mapusok, no? So, nakikita nila yon yung rawness nung Trillanes 10 years, 15 years before. But I would like to believe na through the years, medyo, I would like to believe that I'm still consistent, pero I may not be as brash or rough on the edges as before, no? Kasi ayaw mo rin naman maging yung Trillanes na ito ay maging traditional politician na yun. Alam mo na, nakikita mo mga bata rin, pero wala kang maririnig na sustansya.
Do you count yourself in the opposition?
Yes, I'm still part of the independent opposition kasi I can still say what I need to say, di ba? Otherwise, kung hindi na magiging apologist ka na o Tapos dito naman, I don't see myself joining the Duterte GMA axis of powers. So hindi pwede yun.
But when you say na different times and different leaders and different opposition call for different modes or even different personalities, different roles, as you said. Kung panahon ni Duterte, you basically deal with him the way you would deal with a bully.
Yeah.
What should be the mode of engaging as opposition with the Marcos administration today?
I think you can deal with it with the administration right now as a statesman. Policies ang labanan, 'di ba? Doon hindi basic decency, talagang he was destroying every democratic institution that we have. Kailangan titindigan yun with the loudest voice as possible, hoping you'd wake up some people in the process.
Sige, I'll get to that. I'll get to that finally. Mo, at least nagbago na, 'di ba? Kumalma ng konti. Hindi lang konti, 'di ba?
Malaki.
Lumamig yung lengguwahe, 'di ba? Yung astahan medyo nawala na. But you talked about the institutions. But look at the institutions now. You say, sige, people are more free, you can criticize. Yung mga inumpisahan ni Duterte, talagang damaging. I know you have your thoughts about it also. But essentially, the Marcos administration inherits that weapon and that dangerous tool. Has no mention at all of trying to undo the things that frighten us about it. ABS-CBN, okay, hindi niya kagagawan yung pagsara. But look at what Congress and politicians are doing to the Lopezes. They've carved up the frequency, diba? Ends up with the family of a former speaker. Some parts of it, of the ABS-CBN franchise, ends up with a business tied to the current speaker. And all of these things. And then just last month, may nabaril na naman na periodista. You still have Frenchie May Cumpio, a journalist who has been in prison for 3 years. The Marcos administration is being cited for, all the good news coming Rappler's way and Maria Reza's way. But in the meantime, no word at all about Frenchie May Cumpio, who's been in prison for 3 years. So which of those should we say, okay, that's legit? But which of those, is it fair to say that, yeah, but look at some fundamental things that are still there?
Okay. Ako, I'd like to look at it, in this light. No? Kung pababa tayo before kay Duterte, dito sa Marcos administration, at least nag-stabilize ka dito. Iba na to expect it to go up. Diba? Kumaga from our perspective, dun sa opposition, na talagang ang hirap huminga, talagang grabing bakbakan. Ito, this democratic space that we have now is a welcome relief. Surprisingly, but still, a welcome relief, no? Ngayon, ang sinasabi natin dito, at least walang conscious effort to pin people down, di ba? To curtail press freedom. Yung sinasabi naman kasing, tipong change of ownership and all that. For as long as the people who still run the news will still run the news regardless of the owners, then meron ka pa ring press freedom.
By the way, ang kausap ko si Sen.Antonio Trillanes, not that he needs any introduction.
Yeah.
Kanina pinag-uusapan namin, and I just wanna bring it back. So who's leading the opposition now?
Yung independent opposition is being led by Senator Risa Hontiveros. And I think she's the kind of leader that we really need, no? Yung ginagampanan niya yung role as an opposition leader.
She looks lonely.
Because she is alone. Kasi siya lang talaga yung naiwan. Siya lang nanalo last elections. But
Senator Pimentel doesn't even come to mind to you na parang, teka muna, tandaan natin, sinandyan si Coco Pimentel.
he's part of the minority. But it doesn't make him part of the independent opposition. No? May may mga roles
so
to
you don't
play
count him as opposition?
In the same way na yung minority sa House, sabi nga nila parang company union yun. Hindi rin kumbaga we know our ranks kasi.
Okay. Lenny, where's Lenny?
I think na siya she has decided to go into a different direction doon yata sa local politics sa Naga. She would like to venture into that. Yun. That's good.
So yun na, hindi na natin isasama si Lenny. What you're saying is, are you saying wag na natin isama si Lenny sa usapan when we talk about the national opposition?
No, it was her choice.
And if we are to respect that choice, are we then therefore saying, wala na. I mean, Lenny is not part of the opposition leadership sa totoo lang.
Well, yes, kasi 'di ba, may narinig ka ba sa kanyang komentaryo about any national political issue of the day? Wala naman 'di ba? Kasi yung opposition hindi lang yan label. Kailangan may kaakibat na action yan that would be consistent to that label. Yun ang kailangan natin tatandaan. And so ito ngayon, after nung 2022 elections, she decided to go into a different direction. Hindi naman kinonsolidate yung grupo after. Who are we to what's this? To pull her back in, di ba? Kung ayaw niya
Who else would you count?
sila Congressman Ed Lagman, yun, kasama yun. Then sina Senator Kiko. So kumaga, doon pa rin yung core na yan. Those who still want to engage in the national political discourse, yun. So, Lenny is not part of that anymore.
Is part of being more mature and being more wise and being open to the cliche about politics na sooner or later you'll be strange bedfellows with someone, or are there permanent enemies in politics?
Well, I count GMA and Duterte as permanent enemies. I don't see any scenario that I'd be aligned with them o kung ano man yung kasi iba talaga.
What draws the line? What makes it iba talaga?
Sa akin yung crimes na ginawa nila, no? Mahirap i-overlook 'yon, 'di ba? So siguro ganun.
You said that there was a time you were contemplating siguro papunta na akong private sector kung ganito lang din ang what were some options that were actually already there?
Ito, yung pagtuturo. And immediately after I ended my term, so the teaching jobs were offered. So yun, ang kakagad, I grabbed it immediately, and up to now I'm still teaching.
What do you teach? Where?
In Ateneo School of Government, I teach public policy, public management, and governance. Yan. So, ano yan? Iba yung experience. Early on, I was also teaching sa UP and SIPAG. Kaso I ran, so I needed to take a leave first, parang gano'n. Pero, yun ang aking nakita kong magandang transition. And of course, I was open to some political consultancy work as well. Kasi parang nakikita ko yung mga galawan and I can help the people who deserve to be helped.
Give me a few things na tinuturo mo sa estudyante mo na that you genuinely find them surprised by.
Well, yung basic na question, kasi when I teach governance and bureaucracy and public policy, I start off the lectures by telling them about the purpose of government. What is the purpose of government? Doon, I use the quote nitong kay John Adams, yung second president ng US, na sinasabi niya, ang purpose ng government is to look out for is to provide happiness to the people. Highest level na yun kasi happiness as defined, he broke it down further, is comfort and security. Yung sa atin, yung nakalagay sa constitution natin, the prime duty of government is to serve and protect the people. Yung basic. Pagsilbihan mo, protection mo. Pero sa kanila, happiness. Kumaga talagang you have to provide an environment so that people can pursue happiness.
So your students are what? I mean, when you just give them that basic thing.
Na tipong, kasi karamihan ng estudyante ko, mga public servants din. Sabi ko, nakakalimutan ng people in government na ito ang nandiyan kayo to make your constituents happy. Pagagaanin nyo yung buhay ng mga constituent. Nakalagay yun doon, di ba? Power resides in the people and all government authority emanates from them. Kaya ka nakapwesto dyan dahil binigyan kanila ng kapangyarihan. Di ba? So, yun ang nakakalimutan. Kailangan sabi ko, babalik tayo doon palagi. If you are in power, tatandaan mo that man on the street, yun ang ang duty mo is pagaanin yung buhay niya. Yeah.
Ibang-iba na yung laro ngayon. I mean, you were talking about, one weakness of your first adventure was in communication.
Yeah.
Di ba? 20 years later, even the communication ecosystem, you will not be able to recognize. Di ba? Even kami, media is not the gatekeeper anymore. Yung gusto mong sana, alam ko paano makipag-deal sa mga journalist dati. Ngayon, doesn't matter. Di ba? So, how do you, still as a politician, how are you doing with social media now? I mean, how are you doing with, are you on TikTok? Are you...
Wala. It's nobody has mastered that game. Ang nangyari dito, ilan ang kaya mong bayaran na influencers? Yun yung mag-speak out na message mo.
You're speaking from experience, you know that?
Ganun yung ginawa sa amin. Wala naman kaming pera, wala kaming binabayaran. So we were vilified by these social media influencers na nasa payroll nila or yung fanatic lang talaga. Ngayon, yun. Pero nangyari ngayon, with the breakup of the Marcoses and the Dutertes, dami na ngayon nagsasalita against the Dutertes.
Yeah.
And ironic na yung mga sinasabi ko ngayon, dati, yun ang sinasabi nila against the Dutertes.
Pero hindi mo lang kung mersenaryo pa rin yung mga yan.
Regardless, ang point nito, nasa-shatter yung myth.
Yes, but that's on the case of Duterte.
Yes.
But on the larger question of how do we bring back some sense of control or sanity so that people with a message on all sides of the political spectrum can have a constructive debate that society can take part in. How do we... and how do you take part in that habang ganyan pa rin ang rules?
Well, it's the challenge, in this social or in this information age. And hindi lang tayo yung vulnerable. Yung developed countries, nakita nyo yung mga Trumpers na tipong naniniwala pa rin na daya si Trump, gano'n. Hindi lang tayo. Sila, mas pa ron, yung mga fake news purveyors, talagang mas grabe mga following. So, ganun yung situation natin. At meron pang emerging threat, yung AI. Yung deepfakes. Sobra yon. Kaya nga kailangan, mas on guard tayo rito, mas proactive. Pero ang nakikita kong aabot naman, the other extreme is yung censorship,
regulation.
O magiging police state naman kasi kaya kailangan natin ng middle ground. Ako nga, ang iniisip ko doon is parang a tripartite body, government, tapos yung fact checkers na independent, tapos itong social media platforms na pagka merong nagreklamo ng fake news o inaccurate, kailangan ite-take down ito. So, through the fact checkers, para hindi unilateral from the government. So, sila ngayon na nag-ano. Kasi yung social media platforms, they have the capacity to shut down fake news purveyors. But ang problema nila, how do we know? Ano ba yung Kailangan meron silang basihan din. Kung ito ang tripartite agreement, nag-agree tayo, pagka may na-produce dyan na website o sinong account na nag-fake news, shut down. So, it's not a unilateral decision but a tripartite decision. Yun yung aking idea doon. That way, you can, start to crack down on this. Lalo na kung pinagkakakitaan nila kasi yun, no? Pagka ngayon nasuspend yung account nila o nawala yung account nila, the next time around, they will behave. Kasi mawawala yung regular na kabuhayan mo. Di ba? Parang gano'n.
What excites you now?
Well, marami, no? Yung sa ICC, for example, kasi parang ang haba nung nung kalbaryo na yun, ng pagkamit ng hustisya, no? Para sa mga namatay. It's a personal advocacy ko na rin kasi kailangan magtanda kailangan maparusahan siya para yung taong bayan, future generations, merong young politiko dyan o baka bata pa lang ngayon na nakita niya si Duterte, gayahin ko to someday pag nagpresidente ko. Pero pag naparusahan siya for what he did, sana naman wala nang gagaya, wala nang uulit. Yun.
Okay.
So, ako, I'm excited by that prospect na makakamit na rin yung hustisya.
2025 does not excite you?
Parang malayo pa yan, may 2024 pa no?
No, that's literally next week.
Bagay, no? Next month. So, in 2024, if justice comes, di mas maganda, you can look forward to 2025 in a brighter light.
You think the opposition will come together? The independent opposition, as you call them?
I think...
And what role will you play there?
Itong sa independent opposition sa 2025, personally, Senator Risa may have other ideas about that. But I believe mas importante in 2028. Yung 2025 is a transition. We may or may not participate in that, but kailangan 2028 ready tayo. Yun. So yun. That's all that matters. 2025 to me is a milestone, yes, but it's not that important. You can skip it.
Isn't it important enough to at least tell the people on behalf of the independent opposition na, uy, buhay pa kami?
Pero ma-overwhelm ka Pag nag-formalize yung split na yan, magpapatakbo ng slate itong Duterte camp at yung Marcos camp. Sila ngayon na maghahag ng headlines. Ngayon,
so, kumbaga, pahinugin mo na yung bangayan.
You don't need to squeeze yourself in kung yon. Kumbaga, it's a war of attrition. Di ba? Pero 2028, dapat ready ka.
Okay, and for you personally, what role will you be playing?
Well, 2025, for me, I'm seriously considering running for a local post, no, dito sa Caloocan. I might run for mayor of Caloocan. So, it's an opportunity for me rin na put into play yung mga programs that I have in mind.
No, actually, naalala ko lang. Have you had an executive position?
Well,
or
as part of the armed forces, meron akong experience sa military bureaucracy, although at a certain level lang. Pero, aside from that, wala na. Dito ako sa legislature.
No, sige. Pabantayan natin yan. Senator pa rin. Senator Sonny Trillanes. Unfortunately, you know the drill. Hanggang isang oras lang po tayo dito. But I will continue my conversation with him. Usapan namin hanggang maubos yung wine namin. Tutuloy namin yung usapan. But you will have to leave us.